Welcome back to another episode of Sound Powers Go to the Movies. This is another Throwback Thursday review, and I'm here with my friend Touly. Say hi, Touly.
Hi, guys.
And today we're going to be reviewing Rushmore. And just a fair warning, there's going to be spoilers up ahead, so you've been warned. A teenager at Rushmore Academy falls for a much older teacher and befriends a middle-aged industrialist. Later, he finds out that his love interest and his friend are having an affair, which prompts him to begin a vendetta. So let's begin with my first pro. Everybody knows I'm a Wes Anderson fan, and I attribute it to his offbeat scripts and the way they are written, which are hard to believe people speak in such a manner, but in his movies, it fits well. The script is somewhat simple, but at times thought-provoking in the sense that those lines are placed there in a sort of an homage way to other references, and sometimes there are just random thoughts. So just like I have said that Quentin Tarantino scripts, they are interesting and have a great flow and never feel like they don't fit in. Wes Anderson scripts are interesting, but more in a comical way than the Quentin Tarantino way. Next is the cast. We have Bill Murray as his first film in the Wes Anderson universe, along with the first acting role of Jason Schwartzman, who plays Max Fisher, along with the Wilson brothers, Andrew, Luke, and Owen. Well, Owen didn't actually act in the movie, but he wrote the script with Wes. All the actors' roles were well played and didn't feel forced. They had the right amount of comedy and didn't step or outshine the other characters. Also, there are references to Jason Schwartz's real mother, Talia Shrine's acting career as Adrian from Rocky and Connie from The Godfather, and his real uncle, Francis Ford Coppola, and his movies that he directed. Next point is the way the movie is separated using cues instead of chapters like most of Wes Anderson's later movies. Here we use the songs from the soundtrack to divide the movie into chapters, and they also attribute clues to see how the characters are acting or what they're feeling and which way the movie's going. They seem to have also their own period that they focused on using the songs, so in that sense it kind of made the movie feel more appropriate. So now let's go on to my cons. Even though the movie was an hour and a half, there seems to be a few scenes that aren't really needed in the movie. I mean, they don't hurt the movie overall, but they seem to be fillers. I would have wanted to see more of Blume's marriage or his relationship fall apart with his sons, just to get a better idea why he looked to Max as a friend or son that he wanted as a replacement. Also, add a little bit more of Miss Cross's ex-husband. Maybe we see her open up to Blume in a scene or two, or maybe she cries with Max and shares a story what happened with him or how they ended up together. As for Max, elaborate a little bit more about his home, his dead mother, and why he hides the fact that his dad is a barber and lies to people that he's a surgeon. In this retrospect, the movie would actually have invested more in the characters and we would got to know a little bit more about them while cutting other scenes that were not needed. But that's just me. Next con is the idea that Max can just go about school and do all these projects and not really get in trouble or expelled until he gets into the back and forth with Blume. I mean, how can he go all the way planning the aquarium, even to the groundbreaking ceremony, without the school knowing? Was this all done in the down low? It just seems too far-fetched even for this movie. Now, if they use Blume's name or the dean's name to forge documents and show it to us, then we can get alongside with the plot. So we wouldn't just be like what happened, but just also show us some ramifications that Max had to endure, such as his limitation in clubs or him getting detention or getting kicked out of school. So with that, I'm going to pass it on to my friend Touly and see how he saw this movie and what grade he gave the movie.
So I do agree with a couple of the points that Sal made regarding Max's character, in that he appears to get away with stuff that I would expect a student not to be able to, given that he is at a prestigious school, that he is there, I believe, under scholarship. And maybe the reason I'm gonna put out there as to why he might be getting away with these stuff is because of his talent, if you want to put it in that light, or his involvement in extracurricular activities, because I think the movie indicates that he doesn't excel in academic stuff. So for him to do all of these sort of things that would get somebody in trouble as a student, I find that fascinating. But aside from that, if you do just consider how talented or how much interest he shows in his extracurricular activities, especially his plays, for him to be even doing wrestling, like that took me off guard when I saw that scene. I found it humorous, which then, adds to the sort of comedic vibe that this film sort of brings out, which I thought was kind of mellow. It wasn't like over the top sort of thing like you would see in like an old school movie, or even the more mellow types of comedy films out there like Clerk. So I feel like like it's somewhere in the middle. When the comedy is there, it doesn't get you to laugh out loud, but it does make you either chuckle or kind of, makes you facepalm, especially in scenes where Max and Blume, in which they're going at each other in order to, get the better of the other person in order to eventually win over the teacher Rosemary's affection. I thought the comedy was fine the way it is. For a second too, when it got to that point of Max and Blume just going at it, it sort of reminded me of There's Something About Mary. I was like expecting like maybe a third or fourth guy to show up to try to compete for the affection of Rosemary, but of course that didn't happen. Although if you want to consider Rosemary's dead husband as competition, because I think that's the reason why she decided to not see Blume anymore towards the end of the film, because she couldn't let go of her past with her dead husband. But yeah, I don't know, for some reason it just reminded me of There's Something About Mary when Max and Blume were going at each other just to try to win over Rosemary's heart. So there's that. As far as Max's character though, I wish they would have shown me more about who he was growing up leading to the present. I don't know if it was the movie's intention to do this, but this is how I came out feeling about Max's character at the end of the film, and that is he was the type of character who I necessarily didn't want to root for. Like, he was that type of character who I kind of hate to love in a sense, because I see that he's trying to do the right thing at times, but some of the antics that he pulled though, like, it's so immature, and he doesn't care about, his friend Dirk. He just like cast him aside because of his narrow vision of, trying to win over Rosemary at that point and trying to do whatever necessary to woo her over. That scene towards the end where he gave it one more shot, pretending that he got hurt, and Rosemary saw right through that. I was like, come on, dude, I'm not already rooting for you, and you're gonna stoop to this level. When Max got punched by that Magnus fella, that actually felt good. Like, for me, I felt like Max not only deserved it, but hopefully that gave him a reality check as to the sort of person that he is, and maybe questioning as to whether or not that's the type of person we want to remain as going forward in life. So again, I'm not sure it was the movie's intention for me to feel this way about Max. Just give me some background as to who Max is, to maybe explain why he doesn't excel in academic endeavors but focuses so much on like the extracurricular stuff. Is that like his scapegoat, or I don't know, just give me something so that instead of having me look down upon his character and not necessarily root for him. It's a weird sort of perspective that I have, especially towards the main character. Like, normally, you would want to root for the main character, but for Max, I never really felt any desire to root for him given his antics and all that stuff. So if they have made me sympathetic towards him somehow, then maybe I would have otherwise done so. I mean, even the way he treated Margaret, who showed some signs of affection toward Max, and for Max to have ignored her until after the play at the end, and then it's just like, oh, they're just together now. But to me, it still felt very one-sided. That was just Margaret feeling the way she did towards Max, and that's just Max maybe just giving in, given that he's not going to be able to be with Rosemary. So it's like, oh, I'll just settle for Margaret, and to me that doesn't come off being right. I rather at that point them not being together at all, Margaret and Max that is. At that point, it's Max who has to pursue Margaret, and then that's kind of like where the movie ends. But it kind of leaves it open-ended so that that eventually Max does win her over, so that Max go through the process of understanding why a character like Margaret would turn him down despite her already showing some sort of signs of liking him. I just want to see Max grow as a character, although I feel like maybe he did grow a little bit because of what he did there at the end for Blume and Rosemary. I think just a lot of the antics he pulled just didn't really do for me. And again, if this was the intention of the movie, then I thought the movie did a great job at it, at not trying to root for the main character, but just see who this character is and the sort of things he would do to make him feel like not necessarily an unlikable person, but to be an observer of a character and see if he's able to recognize his faults and stuff of that nature, which again, he did at the end. That play at the end did do something for me, because it also paid tribute to Blume's character, I believe, because of his involvement in the Vietnam War. It did come in full circle in a lot of ways towards the end, but I think the movie needed to do a little bit more with Max's character so that I would totally be on board with how his character was and how he ended up being at the end of the film. Yeah, overall, I thought the movie was good. Comedy was steady, and like I said, had this sort of mellow tone to it. Characters, they play their parts, and for an hour and 30 minutes film, it was one of those nice and sort of like cozy ride. The story moved along, and you just follow these characters around and see what they kind of did. I'm gonna give the film a 7 out of 10.
For me, I agree with Touly. The movie is steady. It's nothing that excels. It's something you can sit and watch, follow, not pay too much attention to, but everything is there. Story, characters. The only thing for me was that there is some scenes that I could have done without, so you can develop more of the characters and give us more of that backstory, especially for Max, Blume, or Miss Cross. Next is the idea that this script, believe it or not, was written before Wes Anderson's first film, which is Bottle Rocket. And when you think about it, The Last Play is kind of based off the movie Apocalypse Now. And that is one of the movies that Max's real uncle directed in real life. So, I mean, the idea that they had Max, played by Jason, be in the movie and indirectly have all these references to his uncle's movies and his mom's characters that she played in movies. Was this written before, or did they add it after they casted Jason? Just that Wes Anderson little homages in the movies kind of got me. But my grade is going to be a little lower because the idea that I wanted more backstory for some characters. So my grade is going to be a 6.5 out of 10. The movie's still enjoyable. I loved it. I sat through it. I can sit through it again. But yes, I wanted more character development. So that does it for this review of Rushmore. Please join us next time where we're going to review Spider-Man 2 with Tobey Maguire.
MJ, in case we die.
You do love me.
I do.
Even though you said you didn't.
Please like, comment, and subscribe. You can find our social media links below. And like always, keep watching movies.